Liberalism. Liberalism is a political ideology that champions individual rights, civil liberties, and democracy. It emerged as a response to the authoritarian rule and rigid class systems that were prevalent in Europe before the 18th century. Central to liberalism is the belief in the freedom of the individual. This includes the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to private property. Liberals advocate for a government that protects these freedoms while maintaining a fair legal system that treats all citizens equally under the law. Economically, liberalism supports free market capitalism, which allows businesses to operate competitively with minimal government interference. The idea is that a free market encourages innovation and efficiency, ultimately benefiting society as a whole by providing more choices and better products. However, many liberals also believe in a safety net to support those adversely affected by economic downturns or inequalities intrinsic to capitalist systems. Liberalism's emphasis on democracy and individual freedoms often puts it at odds with authoritarian regimes, which restrict these rights. The ideology has evolved over time and now includes various strands, from classical liberalism, which strictly advocates for limited government, to social liberalism, which supports a more significant role for the state in the economy and social welfare. Conservatism. Conservatism is a political ideology that values the preservation of traditional social institutions, customs, and moral values. It emerged as a reaction to the rapid changes brought about by the French Revolution and the perceived threats to social order and stability. Conservatives argue that society should evolve organically, valuing continuity and stability over radical changes, which they believe can lead to unintended consequences. At its core, conservatism holds a deep reverence for historical precedent and the wisdom of past generations. This can manifest in a strong support for religious institutions, national traditions, and family values, seeing these elements as fundamental to maintaining social cohesion and moral order. Conservatives often emphasize the role of education in instilling societal values and the importance of a strong community to support individuals in times of need. Economically, conservatives may support free markets, but they also see the value in regulating businesses to preserve traditional industries and protect national interests. They are often skeptical of sweeping government interventions in the economy, however, worrying that such actions could lead to inefficiencies or reduce individual freedoms. In the political realm, conservatives typically advocate for a strong but limited government that plays a key role in maintaining law and order, while ensuring that changes to laws and policies are implemented gradually and respect the historical context of the nation.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Socialism. Socialism is a political and economic ideology that seeks to promote social and economic equality among the population. It arises from the critique of capitalism, particularly its tendencies to create unequal wealth distribution and to allow private control over major resources and industries which socialists believe should serve the public good. Socialists argue that the state or the community as a whole should own and control the means of production, such as factories, land, and large businesses, to ensure that the benefits derived from them are distributed more equally among all people. The fundamental belief in socialism is that cooperation should replace competition in society. Socialists see the free market system as inherently flawed due to its promotion of individual success over collective well-being. This can often lead to exploitation, where workers are seen as mere tools to generate profit rather than as individuals with rights and needs. Socialism varies widely in its application, from democratic socialism, where democratic means are used to achieve socialist ends within a capitalist society, to more authoritarian forms, where the government tightly controls all aspects of life to ensure conformity to socialist principles. In its milder forms, socialism advocates for extensive welfare systems, progressive taxation, and public ownership of key sectors like healthcare, transportation, and education, to ensure that all citizens have access to basic needs regardless of their economic status. Socialism challenges the notion that economic and social systems are inherently competitive and seeks to create a society where resources are shared equitably, believing this supports a healthier, more cohesive community life. Communism. Communism is a radical form of socialism that seeks to create a classless, stateless society where all property and resources are communally owned. It is based on the ideas of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, who argued that history is defined by class struggle, and that the exploitation inherent in capitalism would eventually lead to a revolution by the working class. The end goal of communism is to abolish all forms of class distinction, leading to a society where everyone contributes according to their ability and receives according to their needs. In a communist society, the absence of private property is key. This means that no individual owns land, factories, or other means of production. Instead, these resources are owned by the community as a whole and managed on their behalf by the state. Ideally, this removes the economic disparities seen in capitalist systems, where wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few. The transition to communism, according to Marxist theory, involves a period of dictatorship of the proletariat, where the working class takes control of the state and uses it to dismantle the structures of capitalism and class society. This transitional phase has been the subject of much debate and has varied dramatically in practice, often leading to authoritarian regimes that have been criticized for widespread abuses and economic inefficiencies. Communism has been implemented in various countries with differing outcomes, and over time, many of these countries have reformed into different systems due to practical challenges and internal contradictions. The ideology remains a powerful example of how ideas about equality and common ownership can radically alter society, but also serves as a cautionary tale of how such ideals can be compromised when put into practice. Fascism. Fascism is a far-right authoritarian ultranationalist political ideology and movement characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and the economy. Emerging in early 20th century Europe, notably under leaders like Benito Mussolini in Italy and Adolf Hitler in Germany, fascism promotes the idea of a powerful, unified, and pure national identity, often based on racial or cultural superiority. At its core, fascism rejects ideas of democracy, liberalism, and socialism, advocating instead for a totalitarian state that controls virtually every aspect of life, political, social, and economic. The state under fascism is led by a strong leader, a dictator, and a militant governing party. The ideology emphasizes aggressive nationalism, where the interests of the state are placed above individual freedoms, which are often severely restricted under fascist regimes. Economically, fascism supports a mixed economy, where the government retains control over vital industries and works closely with private sector businesses to achieve national objectives. This control is often justified as necessary to eliminate problems of economic inequality, inefficiency, and social decay, which fascists argue are prevalent in liberal capitalist societies. Fascism also heavily utilizes propaganda, mass mobilization, and the unification of the populace through orchestrated rallies and symbols aiming to create a loyal, unquestioning citizenry. The The cult of personality around the leader and the use of scapegoating to unify and manipulate public opinion are typical. The ideology has been universally criticized for its authoritarian tendencies, suppression of political dissent, and its often genocidal racial policies. The legacy of fascism, particularly from the World War II era, has made it a byword for oppression, intolerance, and extreme nationalism. Anarchism. Anarchism is a political ideology that advocates for the abolition of all forms of hierarchical government and proposes a society based on voluntary cooperation and free association of individuals and communities. Unlike other political ideologies that seek to establish a specific form of government, anarchism aims to dismantle all governing structures that impose rules by force, arguing that true order arises naturally when individuals are free to organize their lives as they choose, without external authority. Anarchists criticize the state for being inherently oppressive, believing that power corrupts and that even the most well-intentioned government eventually serves its own interests or those of an elite rather than the welfare of its people. Consequently, they advocate for a self-managed, stateless society where communities operate democratically and cooperatively, organizing themselves without top-down authority. Economically, anarchism embraces a variety of perspectives. Some anarchists advocate for collectivism or communism, where goods are owned communally and distributed according to need. Others support mutualism, where people exchange goods and services on the basis of mutual aid and benefit, often through the use of alternative currencies or barter systems. Despite its radical stance, anarchism is not about chaotic disorder. Rather, it envisions a structured society where social norms and mutual agreements, not coercive laws, guide human behavior. Anarchists put a strong emphasis on direct action, including protest, nonviolent resistance, and other forms of civil disobedience as means to achieve societal change. Anarchism has influenced various social movements that emphasize autonomy, environmentalism, and anti-globalization, reflecting its enduring appeal to those who seek a world free from coercive authority. Libertarianism. Libertarianism is a political philosophy that emphasizes personal freedom, autonomy, and a minimal role for the state. It is rooted in the principles of individual liberty and the belief that individuals have the right to live their lives as they see fit, as long as they do not infringe on the rights of others. This ideology is strongly associated with the promotion of civil liberties, free market economics, and limited government intervention in both personal and economic affairs. Libertarians argue that a free market, unimpeded by government interference, is the most efficient and just way to distribute resources and create wealth. They believe that economic freedom is essential for personal freedom, and that individuals should be allowed to keep the fruits of their labor without excessive taxation or regulation. This extends to advocating for private property rights, free trade, and entrepreneurship as pathways to economic prosperity and personal fulfillment. On social issues, libertarians are typically very liberal, supporting the decriminalization of drugs, the right to bear arms, privacy rights, and the freedom of expression regardless of content. They oppose most forms of government surveillance and regulation of personal behavior, arguing that such measures infringe on personal liberties and autonomy. Despite its emphasis on minimal government, libertarianism is not anarchism. Libertarians still see a role for a limited government in protecting individual rights, enforcing contracts, and defending the nation against aggression. The balance between maintaining enough government to protect rights while avoiding unnecessary overreach is a central theme in libertarian thought. Libertarianism attracts individuals who are skeptical of governmental power and who value personal responsibility and individual freedom. It remains a significant influence in American politics, particularly within the context of economic policy and civil liberties. Environmentalism. Environmentalism is a broad philosophy and social movement centered on a concern for the conservation and improvement of the environment. It advocates for actions and policies that aim to protect natural resources and ecosystems from degradation and pollution. Environmentalists push for sustainable practices that ensure the health and viability of the planet for future generations. This includes promoting renewable energy sources such as solar and wind to replace fossil fuels, advocating for the reduction of waste through recycling and sustainable manufacturing practices, and encouraging the adoption of a more sustainable lifestyle among individuals and communities. The movement is not just about preserving what remains, but also about restoring what has been damaged. Environmentalists often engage in reforestation projects, wildlife conservation efforts, and campaigns to clean rivers and seas. The urgency of their mission has intensified with the growing threats of climate change, which poses significant risks to global stability through rising sea levels, changing weather patterns, and severe natural disasters. Environmentalism intersects with economics, politics, and social issues, advocating for equitable solutions that do not disproportionately burden economically disadvantaged communities. By addressing these interconnected issues, environmentalism seeks not only to save the natural world, but also to create a fairer, more sustainable way of life for all.